the Moorish Science Temple of America and asked me basically whether that is recognized the individual members of that temple.
What is it called?
It's called the Moorish, Moorish, Moorish Science Temple of America. And he says, as far as his information that has come to him, that the individuals that are members of that temple can or have, to the best of my understanding, petition that they are sovereign people as being members of that individual group. And so that they are sovereign and have been recognized as such and or could be recognized as such. And the question, basic question, was that could each and every black person who is a victim of racism or perceives him or herself as being a victim of racism do the same thing, petition on the basis of being prisoners of war, and that they would become sovereign. I think that's what the question was. I didn't quite understand the question. But my basic answer is that I am not familiar, first of all, with the Moorish Science Temple of America and the U.S. government, other than I have heard about them for years. And so the code says, from that viewpoint, everybody who has heard about them or who has not heard about them can look into it and see what they're all about. And I'm quite sure that if they're established, they have people who can explain what that group is and what its goals are, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because I don't know enough about them to speak about them intelligently. Now, the answer to another question that also was associated with that question is that the premise was that some people could consider themselves, here again, sovereign, and applying the Moorish law to themselves as individuals, like I said just before. And I thought about that, and I said, well, I don't know anything about that, here again, and that people can look into it if that's what they choose to do. And the key word here is being sovereign. I don't know exactly what that would mean in a practical sense. What I have said was, all I do, what I have written, is that each and every individual person who is classified as non-white is a prisoner of war in the system of white supremacy. That one thing is clear to me. In the system of white supremacy, if you're classified as non-white, you're already in captivity. So I don't see how a person in captivity can be, quote, unquote, sovereign. In fact, I have the word guide here that I have written, and I say that you can look up the word sovereign in the word guide, according to what I have written, on page 375. And what I say is you use that word with caution, because I don't know exactly what that word would mean when it applies to non-white people in the system of white supremacy. I've heard of Indian nations being sovereign nations. All the, the Apache tribes and whatnot being sovereign nations. The Creek Indian nation being a sovereign nation. Maybe the Iroquois, I don't know. The Apaches, etc. The Sioux being independent, sovereign nations. But within the system of white supremacy, I don't know exactly what that's supposed to mean. That's very vague to me. I think that the word should be used with great caution when you talk about sovereign. What does that mean in practical terms? So, like I said, in response to the questions, all of the questions, the two questions that were sent to me, I really don't have a definitive response that would be intelligent enough for this audience to follow. But they can look into the history of the Moorish Science Temple and what its status is now in the world, and then go from there themselves by contacting the people who know the most about it. That's what I would recommend. Mm-hmm. You want to find out about anything, contact the people who are mentioning whatever it is that they are mentioning. In this case, the Moorish Science Temple of America, and find out what all of that means and what the sovereignty means, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.